I'm Jim Collison and live from Omaha, Nebraska this week and from the Gallup campus. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday Season 2, recorded on March 17th, 2016. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths Finder themes, one at a time, and today's theme is competition. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during the webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you right below the main video window, so if you just right down there, we'd love to have you log in. There should be a chat room available for you. If you see that, logging in is super easy. There's a login button bottom left-hand corner. Just click on that, choose the guest account, put your name in there, hit login, and you are in, and we will take your live questions during the program. If you're listening to the recorded version or you need custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the new Gallup Strengths Center. It's not really new, but it's gallupstrengthscenter.com. You should see it if you haven't been there in a while. For all your coaching resources and training needs, you can also catch the video on both streaming and downloadable audio for offline listening to past shows. Everything we have from a social standpoint is at our coaches blog, and that's really a good one to kind of bookmark, coaching.gallup.com. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She's one of my favorite learning and development consultants here on the Gallup. And yes, Maika, I did write that down there on my notes. Favorite is what I put on there here at Gallup. And Maika, always great to be together with you on a Theme Thursday. Welcome.
Favorite part of my week, Jim.
Yeah, I enjoyed it as well. Well, it's good to partner with you. We are going to talk about competition today. And we both asked, like, where is this for you? And this week, it's the middle for us. So we're going to have to pull from the chat room. Hopefully there'll be some high competition in the chat room. You and I both watched the video with Jamie Leibbrandt. If you haven't watched Season 1, Jamie Leibbrandt, she is the epitome of competition in our organization. But Maika, as we look at the Theme Thursday Companion Guide, you can download that from the Eventbrite site or right on the live page there. By the way, if you need older companion guides, they're all available inside the old Eventbrite invites. So if you want to go back to gallup.eventbrite.com, go to past events. They're all in there. That's like the number one question I get all the time is, how do I find these companion guides? So you can go out, download them, make them available, make a little book out of them. But Maika, let's walk through a little bit. Talk to us a little bit about competition.
Great, love to. So competition's somewhere in the middle for me, as it is for Jim. And what you heard at the top with us talking about favorites was probably both of our woo masquerading as competition. I was actually kind of surprised when I've taken StrengthsFinder and didn't see competition there because I considered myself pretty competitive. And then I realized, my entire life I've always been aware of the competition to win over people. So it's more about the people. I want people to like me. That's my version of competition. Competition as a theme. Not all that common. In fact, if you take a look at our database, which I will right now, with 13.5 million people completing StrengthsFinder, competition falls at number 27 in terms of how frequently a theme shows up in somebody's top 5. So a great opportunity today to talk about what this really is, because perhaps you haven't had that many opportunities to know and love somebody with high competition today. Of course, our goal through Theme Thursdays is to give you a perspective that helps you fall in love with all 34. Competition as a theme, I think people with high competition have an enduring relationship with victory. And I carefully choose the word enduring because it's something that goes along for a very long time. It might be that they are on a constant quest for victory. It might be that they are learning from their victories. It might be that they're learning from their losses, but it is about that really close relationship with winning. If you take a look at our companion guide, that'll help us understand the short definition right at the top. People exceptionally talented in the competition theme measure their progress against the performance of others. They strive to win first place and revel in contests. So a real key driver and an important thing to understand about competition is this notion of comparison. People with high competition are keenly aware of benchmarkings, being able to understand what does success look like, how do I measure it, what place am I in relationship to that success, and success really looks like being at the very top.
Maika, yeah, you mentioned the how it plays out. I think maximizer woo for me is one of those. I don't necessarily care if I win as much. The winning doesn't feel as good as the people liking me for winning in the end, right? So I think that's a good a good way of stating it. Let's look at raw and mature for this as well. I think there'll be some clues for those people that
Sure.
have it.
So for competition, winning does matter. And I think that we shouldn't apologize for that. If you're somebody with high competition, own up to the fact that, yeah, you're driven by winning, you want to be the best, and very often you because you're paying attention to that, you can want other people to be the best if it's not a game that you're playing. So I think it comes back to that awareness that, yeah, winning does matter. Very often I think we're driven to say, you know what, it doesn't matter if you win, it's how you played the game, it's about the experience, it's what you got out of it, or the swimmer in your lane is the one that matters. Well, that's probably evident of a culture that's higher in achiever than competition, where it really is about yourself. Let's not apologize for the fact that there's something awesome about people with high competition because they can compare and they can win. Raw competition says, if I can't win, I'm not going to play at all. Mature competition says, I look for potential winners to cheer on. So I think because you've got this great relationship with victory, you're probably also aware in areas where you don't excel, you might not throw your hat in the ring, but you certainly can be a fantastic cheerleader for those who are competing. Raw competition looks like being a sore loser because it comes from your gut. I have a very close relationship with, I'm thinking, 3 people in my family who have high competition, my niece, my nephew, and my husband. And even during the times when they've displayed more of the raw side of it, even when my niece and nephew were quite a bit younger, they hate losing, and they'll use that word hate. It's really emotive, it's really passionate, and it is because they really own their performance, and they own their performance in comparison to others. So losing in a raw form can really crush them. But the mature form of that is using that same sort of passion to be focused, and to be focused on how can you be a cheerleader for others? How can you even be a cheerleader at times for yourself or even for your team? In preparing for this, I spoke with one of my very first great partners here at Gallup, Awa. We were great study partners together when we were both learning how to do some of our selection assessments here. And there's a score on the way that we were learning them. And I would come to these courses just happy to talk through what we had learned. And at the very end, the person who was teaching us would have to ask me, how I scored, because I would totally forget. I had no relationship with the score or with the numbers. Awa would start the conversation wanting to know how everybody else had scored, because that was how she understood her progress, and her learning was about how can I improve, how can I get to be the best. And one of the things she told me about competition was it often gets a bad rap. It often comes across as very aggressive, almost intimidating in the fact that it is focused on winning. But the great thing about it is because she's focused on winning, she can be the very best, most focused cheerleader for other people. So when somebody on her team gets an award, she shows up and she gives them a standing ovation because she's paying attention. She notices the winners because she's paying attention to it. So I think, raw is I'm a sore loser, but the mature version of that is I'm a very focused, passionate cheerleader.
Maika, can I say, so Awa was my stair partner this year as we did training for Trek Up the Tower, and she was always, she had such a very good way of spurring me on and kind of competing, but without making me feel bad about it, like she was trying to crush me. So we would be in the stairwell together, and she was, like you're saying, very, very, very affirmative in the things that we're doing, but never quite letting me completely off the hook. So, how many are you doing? Did you do them all? How fast did you do them, right? Some of those kinds of things. So it's funny, as you mentioned that, I really saw that come out in her as we ran a lot of stairs together this.
Yeah, the thing that she told me about competition was it can be a very positive piece because she comes at something by saying, I know the outcome is going to be good. Because I'm selective at where I'm going to compete, I know I can win. And I know that I can drive us toward a goal. So that brings me to this other sort of raw and mature piece of it. It can be selective. We'll start on the mature side here. It can be selective and purposeful because if you know that you're going to bring that kind of passion, that kind of energy, that kind of drive towards something, select something that you're going to really embrace. And that doesn't have to say select something where you're going to win, but it can drive you to really being aware of how do I do the most purposeful work. The opposite of that is you can be picky, you can be difficult, you can sort of, I imagine, cross your arms and say, the game is rigged, I don't want to play, and not take on the right sort of piece. But that can also look like, hey guys, let's really make sure that what we're competing in is a place where is going to be best for us.
Carol Ann says in chat her daughter Macy has got competition, and it was always competing against herself. I think even they would come up with games. She says silly things, and how fast she could make it up the steps, being the first to get to the car. Everything became kind of a competition. And there's both healthy and unhealthy ways, right? When we think of this raw versus mature, if you think about it in that context where the games hurt and maybe the games heal, right? Some opportunities to encourage people, or it's immature state or its raw state to tear people down, right? When we think about those games against each other.
Yeah, I think about raw competition is defeating others. Mature competition is inspiring others.
Yeah, no, I think a good example, and we can see that in the kids. I think that in children we see this theme come out very, very quickly. I mean, it's strength spotting, as we talked about in that book, Strengths-Based Parenting, where you start to see those trends come out. This theme of competition, don't you think that comes out pretty fast and is seen pretty easily in the kids?
Nobody hates winning. No one's going to say, I don't want to win, right? Not all adults are ever going to be bold enough to say, I love winning. But I think kids are sort of unbridled and unafraid of saying, yeah, I love winning. There's something that perhaps we humbleize or we try to polish a little too much as you grow, where we say, don't say you love winning too much. Well, if you have competition, you really do. I also think that comparison is part of competition that you can see really early in children, and perhaps that you can see very evidently in adults who maybe are disengaged. So the notion of comparison, the notion of benchmarking is really big with competition. And in a raw state, that can come across as just constantly noticing what's unfair. And I've worked with kids before whose mantra is, that's not fair. And it probably comes from an awareness of how other people are performing, an awareness of what the score is, a really great into understanding the entire picture. If you think about that, let's translate that into a leadership position. Let's say you're sitting on an executive team of an organization. If you have that awareness of comparison, you're the person who can help us say, here's our competitive edge, rather than that's not fair. You're also the person who can look sort of left and right and say, who is the competition? How are they performing? How do we stack up against that? Versus the temptation on sort of an executive leadership place to only look up and down of how are we doing and where are we going. I think competition brings a little bit more of a swivel to it.
Maika, in your preparation for this, Maureen's talking about, when we talk about competition, men versus women and the numbers, did you look at all in the, we have some new reports out. If you're one of our coaches, you've been through our training or certified, we put out some new 13 million reports inside the Yammer group. So if you're in there, you might want to take a look at the 13 million. But any work on that? Did you compare the difference between the two?
I didn't look at the new one. I purposefully don't, because I think that it's really interesting, but a little bit tempting to get lost in those comparisons.
Yeah,
so I purposefully don't look at it, and I even struggle with whether I should tell people where it is in the database. I can tell you, because you asked, that men tend to be higher in competition than women, but it's not an exclusive thing. I know and love and work with lots of women who have high competition in their top 5.
Yeah, good. Hey, so let's think about complementary themes, and in things when we compare these two. Sure. You've got a couple ready. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, any theme can be complementary, but the pieces that came to mind most quickly for me, the first one was developer, and that came from a conversation I had with someone with high competition saying, you know what, my best partners help me see progress even when I lose. So what developer notices is incremental improvement. So I think that could bring to, if you have high competition, it might be great to partner with a developer and specifically say, I need you to help me see what I'm doing better than I've done before, even in those situations where I'm not number one. Now maybe give me a little bit to get over my loss, but help me really reflect on what is the incremental improvement that I've made. Another complementary theme is positivity. as I was talking to Awa, I thought, well, she's probably describing her positivity, not her competition. She doesn't even have positivity. It's just that her competition comes across as infectious. But if you think about the positivity, if you're somebody who loves to win, positivity loves to cheer. So having really great complementary partners who love your wins as much as you do, somebody with high positivity would be someone like that. And then I thought also about the necessity for competition to be able to have a voice that is a little bit more strategic, and being able to say, hey, as a group, as an organization, with a project, with an initiative, how is that landing? Where is that benchmarking? And I brought up actually the idea of the theme strategic as being a partner who could help you say, where is it that we can win? How does this competition or this win factor into a bigger organizational initiative? So strategic could certainly do that.
When we think about likely and unlikely pairs with this is kind of a database exercise in some, but let's talk about the likely pairs.
Yeah, statistically, this is looking at a random sampling of 250,000 completes that's representative across our global database. And we look at the most likely being what shows up most often with competition in your top 5, and that is achiever. So if you have competition, you're most likely of the rest of the 33 to also have achiever. And if you have competition and achiever, it probably looks like checking off milestones accelerates your journey toward victory. The picture that I have in my mind is playing Mario Kart, and where as you're racing, you can literally run over some accelerators, and they usually look like stars, and they make a little twinkle, and all of a sudden, for about 5 seconds on the race, you go a little bit faster. And it jumps you sometimes ahead of other people. I think if you've got competition, you're already on that race all the time. And if you add achiever to it, it gives you that ability to say, I'm tracking my progress by specific milestones, like those stars that you would run over in Mario Kart. Somebody with achiever and competition sounds like a productive scorekeeper. Yeah, go ahead.
Before you do that, so we have achiever and competition really high here at Gallup. This is one of the things when we've pulled a report and we look at the Gallup database. And so I have coined this phrase, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And I find this competition achiever, what sometimes at the friendly competition level, everybody's jonesing to get the edge right there. We've done things where we've had office Olympics, out in the back where we do some fun things. And we've had to create all these rules. Like they even got to the point where they wouldn't release the name of the games until an hour ahead of time, so people would not find ways to get the advantage, right? Some call it cheating, others call it taking the advantage, right, or getting an advantage, getting an edge, so to speak, to be able to win. So it's interesting in our culture, how do we then turn that, make that positive? I think lots of time even, the goal to have this audacious goal, to have 1 billion people, right? No, that's audacious, right? And that's going to take some competition. You and I in the pre-show here, we're talking a little bit about our numbers, right? Like, how's the blog doing? How are we doing on Spreaker? That's one of those things, is a corporate culture that drives us. So, Mike, I think there's some interesting things we can do, and I say that because I think that culture is bigger than just us, and be swept up in that culture, even if we don't have high competition. Or achiever in this case, we can be swept up in that, and it can be very productive, I think, in an enterprise setting. And so, just some interesting as you put those two together, very personal here at Gallup because those themes are so high here.
I can think of a couple times in my life when I've been lucky enough to work with people with high competition. It happens a lot at Gallup because we have a lot of them. I have no achiever either, which for the first 5 years that I was at Gallup, I thought I needed to hide because it looks like it's on everybody's name tag here. But I love the energy that somebody with high competition brings. They bring excitement around what we're doing. They help me understand that what we're doing isn't transactional, it's part of a journey, because they see things as a game or they see things as a race. And so they bring some focused energy to not just the end goal, but the entire process. And I think about, it's hard to talk about competition and not talk about sports. I am very great at murdering any sports analogy, so I won't go there. But if you think about great coaches, they know that the way you prepare is part of how you win or lose. The way that you, the atmosphere in the arena is part of that. So working with people with high competition, it's that they make the entire progress and experience. And they also bring great clarity toward the goal. So think about the sort of stability that that can create for people. Think about that as a great management technique of being able to say, here's how we're performing. And I'm going to make it an exciting journey to understand what success looks like. And by the way, I can help you know how we're going to measure that too.
Yeah, no, it's good. There's never a dull moment in those situations where, especially here, whenever we're competing against something, and it's very positive, right. But it's very exciting. I think it creates a great workplace environment. I cut you off, unlikely pair, and this one, when I looked at this, I found this a little interesting. So talk about an unlikely pair.
Yeah, so statistically least likely to show up with competition is the theme of connectedness, which we'll be talking about next week. I think if you had them both, it would look like creating a win that leads to a bigger impact than we might understand right now. I think it's probably, so we talked about, back to my coach idea of really being aware of every piece that comes in toward that journey to compete. That would be expanded almost exponentially if you add connectedness. It might allow for a little bit more mystery under, there's a bigger impact that I'm not aware of. There's a bigger ripple effect happening. The internal locus of control that competition has, that says I'm in charge of really performing and outperforming, would be married with this external okayness or acceptance of control, saying I'm going to work as hard as I can here, and that's probably going to affect pieces that are out of my control, and that's beautiful. So I think it brings a larger purpose to why we need to win. If you think about what that might look like just in a few words, connectedness and competition sounds like a selective social advocate.
No, that's awesome. Sarah in the chat room, so she's new. She said the first time she's joining us on Theme Thursday. So Sarah, welcome. Yeah, it's kind of fun because she's coming in and now seeing some of these very positive sides of these things. Sarah, we're in season 2 of Theme Thursday. If you've just started joining us, season 2, all of season 1 is available on video, by the way. If you want to go back and watch these. The first 24 with Kurt and the last 10 done with his peers. They're all available if you want to go back and take your top 5 or if you just go to YouTube and you search Gallup Strengths Center and then go to the Theme Thursday playlist. They're all available for you. So Sarah, we've got all those. Welcome. Glad you've come out to join us today. Maika, some personal reflections and some observations as we think about this. You got a good quote in here, and I think sports analogies do play in, but talk a little bit about some of your observations.
They do. So I didn't put quotes around this because I'm paraphrasing it, but I was looking for quotes about winning. I purposely didn't Google quotes about competition or about competing because I didn't want that to be influenced by our achiever culture that says I'm competing against myself. So I looked for what are some inspiration around winning, and I found a really cool quote from Michael Jordan, and he talked about the number of games he's lost, the number of times he's been expected to shoot the winning basket and lost, and it was super specific. And he says, I've been trusted with the game-winning shot 26 times and missed, and that's why I keep competing. What that does is it gives us a great illustration of the purposefulness and the preciseness that people with high competition have in order to learn how they can improve. It's that important. Your data, your performance, your comparison is that important because it is ingrained in how you're going to perform in the future.
Yeah, and that winning, we have a love-hate with, I think, and I'll just speak for the United States because that's the culture I understand the best. We have a love-hate relationship with it. We love doing it. Those who win a lot, we want to knock down some ways, and I think there's a cultural piece to it. So I think sometimes with high competition, we run that risk of win but don't win too much type deal, and that's tough. I think when we apply a theme like competition to sales, this is when I think, because StrengthsFinder is developed and designed to be a performance enhancing tool, right? How do I create a better version of myself? I think for folks that are high in competition, especially a competition achiever, man, in a sales role or in a situation where performance matters, man, this thing can be turned on into some incredible just incredible stuff. And when it hurts to lose, it drives you to win, right? I mean, so, Maika, can you talk a little bit about that as we think about the job role?
Yeah, and what's interesting is I bet people with competition would hear that and say, Every job performance matters. I worked with a teacher. She was a kindergarten teacher, and she had competition and significance. So, and right away when I say that, I'm sure people are like, ooh. But it was beautiful. You walk into her classroom, and she had bulletin boards up that had colorful characters with every student's name on it. And once a student learned something or mastered something that they were trying to master, their little character got to move up the ladder. And so it's that external performance goal that significance is attracted to, and it's also that benchmarking that competition is attracted to. And as a kindergarten teacher, she was a great one because, again, she was creating clarity. It's not that she didn't allow, I think there's something powerful about having loss be as important and real as victory. And for people with high competition, they've got a relationship with loss because they can, or times when they didn't win, they're just as important. They learn from them because they drive them toward that opportunity to win.
When I was in third grade, I had a teacher that, and Carol Ann had asked, this is perfect because Carol Ann had asked that question earlier, what does this look like in an educator? I had a third grade teacher that let us run at a self-pace, and so she didn't teach math every day. She gave us the materials and said, when you struggle, let me know, but as you get through the material, take the tests. That'll be an indication at the end of the chapter that you understand the material. And if you can get a 90 or above on the test, you can move on, and we'll do it at your own pace. Well, 6 of us took off like rockets and competed against each other to see who could finish. And halfway through the year, we finished grade. And then we started on 4th grade, and we raced through 4th grade, and a few of us made it to the 5th grade math level, and she just kept giving it to us. And so she fostered that competition without necessarily setting up charts or graphs, which I think are great, but she knew who to challenge, and I think that's, in an educator, that's an opportunity. Know who to challenge, and then, because not everybody did that, and there's going to be some who are going to need that structure to be able to move forward, right? But I think that was a beautiful example of taking her. She had high competition too. I don't know for sure, but you kind of sense that in her. So that was another way for me personally. The way that worked out is she just let us run, and then, like you said, cheered us on. Like when we finished a grade level, she'd take us out to lunch, and I remember going to a Bob's Big Boy, which not a lot of people remember, but she took, and that was such a big deal to have this big gigantic hamburger, for completing it, and she cheered us on for it. So I think there's maybe another example.
I think that's beautiful, and I love that it's a great example of the energy that competition creates, and it's real competition. It's I want to compete. It's also a great example of why competition is an influencing theme. So in our strengths-based leadership domains, competition needs other people. Competition is not the swimmer in your lane is the only one that matters. Competition is, I'm going to swim faster if there's somebody right next to me. And I'm going to outperform those other people. It's really hard to outperform yourself over and over again, unless you've got something like Achiever. And so competition really is about, I need other people to compete against, but I need other people to help me win. And that can be, I need to talk to the very best, or I need to learn more about who the top performers are. People with high competition, they tend to have champions and to pay attention to champions and to almost have this magnetic attraction to other high performers because that's where their radar is built into.
Maika, any other thoughts you want to throw in there on competition?
Just that it's pretty awesome. I think it's important if you've got high competition to find a way to win every day. Just like some other themes you'd look for, what do I need every single day? Competition needs progress toward a win, or maybe even a completed win. They like to be treated like winners. They will speak winning language. And I also had some great insight about competition from somebody who has it really high, in that individual performance is always, recognition for individual performance is always more important than team recognition for them. That might not be true for every single person with competition. I think that it can also obviously be about your team winning, but typically when it's about your team winning, it's because there's no way for you to be competing against the people on your team. So it is about winning. It's about victory. It's about comparison. It can be a wonderful leadership strength. It's because they're aware. People with high competition are aware of who they're competing against and who they're not. And if they're not competing against you, they're probably cheering you on.
I think when you said influencing, all of a sudden in my mind I thought brings energy. right?
Yeah.
And I think about
Yeah.
competition being one of those themes that brings energy to a group. And they don't all do that. A woo is one of those that brings energy socially,
Hmm.
right? And competition brings energy and purpose in getting things done from that standpoint. And so it's just kind of fun to think through that, in a group, as you're putting teams together, as you think about your team grid as a manager, I might want to start looking for that high competition in there and put them in a role, put them in a place where they can have high influence on the team and getting things done, right?
Absolutely.
Getting to the finish line, more than getting done, getting to the finish line. Sometimes we get a lot of things done, but we don't get finished. And competition will want to finish that.
Right. And I think competition will bring energy not just toward the goal, but a bigger splash. So after something has been finished, they'll bring some celebration to that as well. So it's about it's just such a cool theme. It's really about being able to see some progress, to see some clarity. If you've got somebody with competition on your team, give them a good platform to help clarify what does winning look like, how do we quantify it, and what are they aware of in terms of how we're performing toward other people who are also performing.
Yeah, Kurt would be proud that we brought love to a sometimes maligned. I think he would always say theme biased. He always wanted us to love all 34 themes. And so I think I hope we've brought a very positive, loving approach to competition. And if you have that, and maybe you've been maligned by it in the past, some good indicators on how to make that positive. Speaking of Kurt, let's dive into the theme dynamics portion of this, Maika. And of course, Kurt's book, Expanding Your Strengths, available in the Amazon marketplace in the UK, United States, and Canada right now. If you want to purchase that, we are making that available in as many markets as we can, just as fast as we can. We don't have all the keys to that yet. It's coming along, but if you're in the US, UK, or Canada, you can purchase this. Just search Expanding Your Strengths on the Amazon store, any of those places. Let me flip over to that here real quick. We'll focus on that and then make this big, and hopefully you're seeing that now. Oh, I actually got to share. Oops, I made a mistake here. So Jim, you actually have to share the screen if you expect people to see it. So let's bring that out. You should be seeing here in a second. Okay, that you are. So hopefully right now you are seeing. Make sure we're full screen. We are. So you should be seeing, and what this is, it's a web app that's available. So after you purchase the book, you get a code that's available for this web app. And each one of those, as you see, there's a drop down. Today we're going to look at competition. This is a way of combining themes together, and Kurt did a lot of work on putting these together with great descriptions, and that's what we're going to roll through. Gotten a lot of questions on this, Maika, and a lot of folks have enjoyed this part of the program as we go into it. We also go into the Facebook group each week and have you select 4 of the themes that you want to compare together, and so we have 4. We're going to start with Relator.
Cool. So this is probably the most magical part of what we do here, because it is tapping into how does this change? How does it filter through? How does it really get individualized? And that's what I love about strengths coaching, is you're never going to meet somebody exactly the same. There's always that thumbprint that helps you really understand what it looks like. So if you've got Relator plus competition, it probably sounds like this. You get better when you compare your performance to that of the people closest to you. Your best competitors are your best friends. Another way that I thought about Relator and competition was there's an authenticity to Relator that might break down some of the more gaminess of competition. I know when I say the word gaminess, it sounds like hunting and cooking elk or something, but competition can turn everything into a game, and sometimes that can feel like there's a barrier between the sincerity of what you're doing. I think when you add Relator to it, it brings a real transparency to it, so it doesn't quite feel like we're doing something for the sake of it being a game.
Yeah, I love your best competitors are your best friends. That's just I love the way he lays these things out. Okay, let's look at competition and harmony.
So competition and harmony. Harmony by itself is about bringing consensus. When you think about these together, your role in victory is often shaped by your natural inclination to reduce conflict and to increase cooperation. So if you think about harmony and competition together, I have a winning negotiator.
Yeah, and don't we often think of these are 2 that I think when people would see them on the surface, they might go, ooh, those might be conflicting, right? Because the winning, we sometimes see winning as winning at all cost, and harmony is that peace at all cost type deal. So Micah, talk a little bit more about that as you see this in somebody, this combination. Again, how do we reconcile that, or as a coach, how do we reconcile that? What's the exercise to putting those two together?
The exercise is always to ask the person you're coaching. But that being said, there's nothing that says that winning has to be disruptive. I think about harmony and competition can bring around some really peaceful wins, some ability to say, let's find the path with least resistance that helps us as a group come out on top. Or even as an individual, let me understand. Let's say I'm somebody with high competition. I'm going to outperform my peers and help them feel like they're a part of it, or in a way that doesn't make them feel like they lost, in a way that helps them share my victory.
Yeah, I think your first statement's really important when you said you should ask them. We see this a lot in the Facebook group where a coach will jump in and say, hey, I have somebody, they'll list the 5, what should I say? And I think the first question is, what should I hear? Mm-hmm. So have you asked them, right? That's in a lot of our conversations, I'd love to hear, okay, what have they said already about those kinds of things? Because I think what you're saying, right, the key to that is often in their own statements, right? I mean, aren't they saying a lot of what we need to hear?
Well, let's think about CliftonStrengths Finder as an assessment itself. It all comes from within you. It is you saying, I'm more like this, I'm less like that, and you're comparing yourself to yourself as you take that assessment. So at the very end, what you have is your own inputs that say, here's your 5 areas that are most like you. No one theme is an opposite of another. And I have never had a hard time understanding 2 themes if I ask somebody who has both of them in their top 5. I've never done it, and I've coached for years. So I think that first question of, gosh, if you do see it and you think, whoa, those 2 don't go together, always say, how do those 2 play out for you? And you can typically find people will sort of think, well, they're not different. They'll almost react like, why would you ask me that? Yeah. Of course, I'm making a broad generalization here, but I've never had a hard time helping somebody reconcile 2 themes together as long as I didn't present it as a problem.
Yeah, Jane says from time to time, I think I can attribute this to her. She'll say that chaos creates clarity. And I think of competition, and in the last part of this, as we think about harmony on this, the natural inclination to reduce conflict and increase cooperation. And oftentimes in competition, as we get to the winner, it creates this point where the harmony comes in because we've all agreed on this point. Right?
Yeah, think about the clarity that both of these bring. Right. Competition brings clarity toward the end goal. Harmony brings clarity amongst people. So it is probably that great moment when you finally get to the place that we agree on. It's not just that you can move forward, which is what harmony would want, but it's that you can celebrate it, which is what competition would need.
That's very cool. Another one, which I'm interested in, is empathy. Let's roll through that one.
Great. Empathy is about feeling what other people feel. And when you put them together, it sounds like this. When you win, you embrace the thrilling joy that comes with victory. And when you lose, you experience the painful agony of defeat. So basically what empathy does to competition is it turns up the volume in your emotion. So it also helps you feel what your competitors are feeling. It helps you almost be like a litmus test into what's going on with others. I think there's something about empathy that values confidentiality. And so it probably brings to it, if you had empathy and competition, I imagine you being a fantastic, somebody who could listen to somebody else confidentially and help them think about what does improvement look like. Or somebody who could listen and feel with somebody else and help them compare in a way that might be helpful. So a confidential comparison, I think, would be something you could look for if you had a good friend with both of those.
Yeah, and we don't always win, right? And so sometimes that empathy, that we need someone who understands what it feels like to lose. Oftentimes when people are in that, they've lost for something, whatever it is, and somebody says that very caring, well, it'll be okay. Well, no, it won't be okay, right? There's sometimes we need to feel in that defeat, and it hurts, right? Whatever that is, right? A lost job, a lost opportunity, a lost friendship. And I think when we think about this competition and empathy together, this can be a very powerful friendship in the sense of someone who will feel that loss with you, right? Because I think it's important that we sometimes deal with that, especially in a performance standpoint of what did we do wrong, what can we do better, and how can we recover from it, right?
I also think if you have both competition and empathy, you get a feeling for how your performance is affecting the feelings of others.
Yeah. No, right on. Let's do, I think deliberative is the last one we'll bring in before we
Yeah.
talk about next week.
Deliberative's about careful attention to the choices that you make, really thinking through all the possible pitfalls before you take that first step. Um, and when you put them together, I think about
Did it
competition.
disappear on you?
There you go.
Sorry. There we go.
Sorry, I was going to fake my way through it, but
You did
that's
a nice
okay.
job. Sorry, I heard you pull up, and I'm like, oh, what happened?
I knew that's how well you know me, Jim. Yeah. So your victories are often the result of making fewer mistakes. By anticipating what could go wrong, you can prevent it. So again, it's about you're paying attention to the score, you're paying attention to that victory, and so you're probably going to be very cautious about what you do and how you do it. Think about them together. I think about it as somebody who probably pays quite a bit of attention to the rules of the game. Somebody who's careful and conservative and makes sure that they're going to win in the very best, most accurate way.
Very good. We have coming up next week have connectedness, and I often get accused of having this. I don't, but because of some of the things that I like to do, I get accused of it. But let's talk a little about the comparison of these two.
So I have connectedness number 6. I'm pretty excited about getting to talk about this one. It's a relationship building theme, and it's about that feeling, that understanding that everything happens for a reason, that there's some bigger purpose connected to what you're doing. Jim, I lost my screen. Thanks.
There we go. Sorry, I keep moving the mouse. I'm trying to work and do this at the same time. Sorry.
Oh, it sounds like this. You compare the well-being of one country to that of another country with the hope that all humanity might be well. It's a pretty global thought, isn't it? So I think about connectedness. We talked about this. It's the least likely to happen within your top 5. So if you had them both, it would probably, I think we called it a social advocate who's paying attention to score. It's somebody who's aware of the global can mean literally about the world. It can also just mean more holistic about your community. And I think it's an awareness of the game that might benefit everybody.
Very cool. Well, we'll get a good chance to dig in on that one next week. We'll flip this back over. This is the part of the program where if I can get together, give me 1 second so we can, there we go, get that back off, and we'll stop sharing the screen there. This is the part of the program we'd like to have you jump in on. I'm going to grab the link from the Google Hangout. You would need a camera and a microphone, or the microphone built into your camera would be fine. You can also join us on your cell phone, which we've had, I think Abby has joined us a couple times via her phone and has made that work. And so if you'd like to jump in and do it that way, that would be a great way to join us. We'd like it if a competition was in your top 5. That's kind of what we want to talk about today. So if you got that, we'll give you a few short minutes. Mike and I will banter about a few things as we get that done. But a great way for you to jump in. Let's see, I put that there. Yeah. So Maika, as I was one of the things. So somebody had asked about our Facebook groups, and of course we have one. Facebook.com/groups/CliftonStrengthsFinder. We're regrowing that group. It's about 600 or 700 out there now. And then, of course, we have the Called to Coach group, Facebook.com/group/called-to-coach. You don't have to be a coach to be out there. About 5,000 people in that group, and really a lot of good conversation and a lot of material that we get for this. So we kind of pull out of that group. And so I was trying to do that and this at the same time, and of course the picture kept disappearing. Okay. Modern technology at its best.
Jim, I'm drawn to how quickly people in our chat room started talking about connectedness being beautiful, and I'd like to challenge people to think about how beautiful competition is. Sort of the beauty, the grace. My husband has competition in his top 5, and he is so drawn to. I think there's something very beautiful about the way he is a fan. So it's March Madness here in the States today, opening games, and he is the most dedicated fan of one specific basketball team, and it infiltrates everything he does, and it's gorgeous, and he shares it with other people, and he's not sort of closed or personalized about it, and the way that he celebrates when his team wins, the way that he even mourns when his team he loses, he takes it very personally, and I think there's something really, really beautiful about that.
Yeah, and how ironic that we are having competition on maybe one of the most, besides the Super Bowl, maybe one of the most competitive weekends that's coming up in March Madness. Yeah, just tons of fun to get in the brackets. I have not been a bracket guy in the past, but a couple years ago, some friends were like, "Oh no, you should jump in and do this." And now our podcast group does brackets, and we have our fitness center does brackets, and we have all brackets going on, and it's just fun team building. I think that's one of those things as a manager. Fun to get that going with your team. Money does not have to change hands, which is awesome. There's plenty of ways to do that with technology now. And just in kind of build, I like what you said, to make that competition. I would love if we would figure out ways to make competition beautiful, like you said, in the sense of how do we really, because it's good in its form. What it does is good for us. We need to get things done, right? So we need to win. There are times we need to compete and to win, and so I love that, and especially when that happens in groups where it's okay to win and it's okay to lose, but winning is still good.
I think about there's a community aspect I think there can be to competition of how are we winning, what are we winning, how are we identifying ourselves as somebody or a part of a win, and how do you share that with a larger community? It's pretty cool.
Sarah,
somebody was here that we lost.
Yeah, Sarah, sorry, we kept talking. I expected you to unmute so you could hear us, but jump back in, Sarah. We'd love to have you. You might sometimes joining a hangout the first time is a little rough, so we'd love to have you come back in as and chat with us. Sorry, I was looking for the cue of you to unmute your mic, and so jump back in here. Yeah. So let's hopefully Sarah, we'll get Sarah back in here. The beauty of competition, I think, Maika, you've helped me today. I never really saw it as in terms of beauty. And I think we can, as we think of it that way, I think there's some ways we can think of it. And as a manager or on a team, I think there are ways we can bring our teams together to make it a beautiful exercise, right? I think we have to be intentional about it. It can't just happen in a vacuum. We have to, we have to do it in ways that creates that beauty.
Well, just like any of our strengths, I think when we try to cover up the real motivation behind it, it gets ugly. If you try, if you're somebody with competition and you try to play the, oh, I'm only competing against myself, or oh, winning doesn't matter, then it comes across as frustration. And, if you know what your teams need, give it to them. If you know that you've got somebody on your team who needs to know about the score, let them see the score. They can create some fantastic ripples and a really great community. And I think a bigger piece to competition is the values aspect of it. So they value victory, and that is something that is celebratory and pretty contagious. I know that competition sometimes gets that bad rap, and I want to direct people to Roseanne Liesfeld's blog she wrote a couple years ago about, do you have what is it called? It's about, are you struggling with any of your themes? I'll figure out what the blog is, and I'll put it in the link down below, but it's on coaching.gallup.com, negative feelings about your themes. She talks about, she actually has, I think, high competition, and that's one of them she discusses there, so a great piece to check out.
Yeah, and I think competition can also be an unsticking. We talked about the force that it has available to it, and I think it can be used is to unstick things that have become stuck. Yeah. And so when we think about teams or groups or movements or ideas that have become stuck, I think of in innovation we have these things called hackathons. And they're really a competition, right? At the end of the day, there are winners and losers. An interesting story, so we have this high school internship program that we run every year, and we get these great kids in, and we're going to have 14 kids on campus for the summer, 14 high schoolers this year on campus for the summer, which is awesome. But as we were doing their final presentations, they work for us for 12 weeks with these projects they're working on, and then the 12th week, they come in, the IT managers from Gallup come in, and they do this Shark Tank-like exercise. And we've never made a competition out of it. It's just been like, everybody wins kind of deal, in that. And one of the kids this year wrote both on his evaluation and said to me personally, hey, next year, can someone win this thing? And I thought, interesting, if we actually make if we have a winner in it, how much more innovation would that drive? In other words, sometimes because there's a winner and a loser, that might push someone to do something they wouldn't normally do, right? That's what winning does sometimes. Think about that workout that you're doing, and if it's, no, I'm going to do 20 reps, but hey, 50 because I've never done 50 before, well, that's going to push you to be a better version of yourself, right? So I think there's some interesting power in that.
Yeah, you know what? I think you just talked about competition as being powerful. I think people with competition can do that as well. So individuals can push other people to think about how can you be better than you've ever been before. And I'm not totally sure why we think it has a bad rap. I think, gosh, we celebrate competition all the time. Look at evening TV shows. You can either watch sports, or you can watch The Voice, or you can watch X Factor, or you can watch Shark Tank, and you've got on almost every network every night some sort of celebration of winners and some sort of celebration of victory. And so it's just people with high competition espouse that every day. Why wouldn't you want to be around it?
Yeah, JB reminds us each theme is neutral, right? We believe that each theme is neutral, and you kind of choose the good or the bad ways to use that. And so it's that choice is really up to you. I think we try to give you some suggestions and some inspiration to be able to use these things both as an individual and in your, if you're a coach, if you're one of our CliftonStrengths coaches, great opportunity. Well, Maika, I will say we didn't get anybody to join us. Sarah, sorry you couldn't get in here. We have an event coming up this summer. Speaking of strengths, we have an event coming up this summer on July 18th, 19th, and 20th. And if you have not gotten the word about that, we want to get the word out. This is a time-shifted podcast, so if it's past that day, you missed it. It's okay. Come back. Courses.gallup.com. But if you head out there right now, all the details, some of the details right now. By the time you hear this and you go to it, hopefully we'll have everything posted. But a lot of the details are out. Here in Omaha, we're going to gather as Strengths community and kind of party. I mean, that's kind of what I think U2 is opening for us. Just kidding.
It's just a rumor. It might
be great, though. We had U2 opening the Strength Summit for us.
It'd be a beautiful day.
Maybe Sherry Terry can make. She has competition, I think, and we'll see if we can get U2 in here for it. But we're going to try and gather just as many strengths enthusiasts and coaches.
More importantly, you get to meet Jim in person.
Oh, that's scary. That's a scary thought. Just leave me on the screen. I'm much better that way. Just leave me on the screen. But we're excited about it. If you want to get some more information, courses.gallup.com is the best way to do it. And all of our summits are listed out there. We have a Millennials Summit coming up that you can participate in as well here in May. And
not for millennials only. It's about a report about millennials, right?
About the millennials. And don't forget, Gallup.com be your friend, by the way. If a lot of folks in our strengths movement I don't want to say have forgotten, because Gallup.com gets millions of views every single month. But if you are really interested in some of our best data that we have out there, it's all available on Gallup.com. Don't miss that. We've got a lot, and we are really cranking up the number of reports that we are putting out here on an annual basis, and you might want to go out and take a peek at those. We have an exciting new webcast. I think I can say this. We have an exciting new webcast coming out on higher ed with the one Brandon Bastide. And so if higher ed is your place, you'll want to watch the Gallup webcast channel. That's coming up as well. We've got some cool stuff. We'll remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. I mentioned that before, gallupstrengthcenter.com. You can send us your questions or comments if you'd like to. Many of you have. I appreciate those emails that I've gotten from you just encouraging us here on Theme Thursday. Get to share some of those with Maika, and very exciting. If you'd like to be a guest blogger, that's Maika's realm right there. She runs our blog. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the email, and then a couple notes about who you are, maybe some samples or some stuff. That'll start the dialogue, and we'll see if we can get you get a post done and post that on our coaches blog. About 25,000 views every single month on that blog, so it's pretty significant. Maika, nice job, by the way, on that as well. Nice job. By the way, on our coaches blog, coaching.gallup.com, the links to our Facebook groups, YouTube page, our iTunes and RSS feeds if you want to download these automatically to your phone. We have an iPhone and Android app for StrengthsFinder, so if you can't remember what it is, and I talk to people in public all the time like, oh, I took StrengthsFinder, and you're like, oh, what's your top 5? And they go, right? The StrengthsFinder app would have it available, literally a touch of a button on your phone, and you can get to your top 5. Available for free out there, and the links to it are on our coaches blog. We're going through the Weekly Strengths Wisdom series, and we appreciate you guys working on that. We talked about we have Connectedness coming up next week. All of them are listed on that page on the coaches blog as well. And if you're interested in becoming a certified Gallup Strengths coach, you can get a list of all of our courses. Again, courses.gallup.com. If you have questions about certification, that email address is just certification@gallup.com. We try not to make it too hard to get in touch with us. Or there's a contact form right there on the page. If you have done your top 5 and it's been a while and you want to expand those to all 34, that all 34 option is available for you as well. Information for that is on the Gallup Strength Center
Don't
page.
Retake the assessment. You can just unlock it.
That's a super common question I get all the time is, do I have to assessment again? And the answer is no. Just unlock it, and everything is out there to be able to do that. If you found this helpful, but although if you just took, Maika, real quick, if you just took your top 5, should you unlock your 34, or what's your advice on that if someone maybe just in the last couple months has come to the top 5?
You know, Don Clifton was a proponent of only ever telling people their top 1, and his reason behind that was because there's enough information and enough development that can be done around that 1 to last your entire lifetime. So my Maika rule is if you just check your top 5, no, you don't need your full 34. That's a heck of a lot of information to deal with. But there's a lot more thoughtful answers around that, is that really you really want to have engaged that relationship with your top 5. Your top 10 are probably important as well. But if you really want to do something about it, I think it's about the small everyday practices that you can do. And 34 themes is a lot to deal with if you're thinking about small everyday pieces. So I usually tell people don't take 34 until you can tell me about your top 5.
Yeah, it's good. And if you do, if some people just have to have it, I'd encourage you to get a coach. That's some of the best ways to kind of keep that in control. We have a whole list of certified coaches on the Gallup Strengths Center page. If you go out there to scroll down a little bit, it'll say certified coaches directory. And we have almost 1,000 certified coaches listed out there, and who would love to help you work through those 34. So if you want to do that, you're going to make a little investment in it, and I'd recommend you get a coach. If you found this helpful, and by the way, Sarah, great to have you, a first-time listener out there, and she really had a good time today. So Sarah, great to see you out there. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share it. We want to thank everyone for joining us today. We'll look forward to the next theme Thursday. We'll be back next week, and with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.